Yeah, what did you do? I got in trouble. I wasn't even on this account for 5 days, so.
Damn, the girl really has nothing else to do that she has notifications on.
Take me to your leader.
Flight 007.
seems like this seems like totally weird that he like thinks that like time is just an intuition that you have rather than like an obvious thing that exists outside of you that has to exist for you to change it all.
To remove Green from the chamber, he was escorted out after Green ignored Johnson's admonition to sit down. Johnson told Fox News last night, and the Freedom Caucus this afternoon has followed through on this threat, that there would likely be efforts to censor Green. And in fact, as I said, those are underway. I kind of made a joke about this last night. I sent out a social media message saying that under the U.S. Capitol rules, when a president is addressing a joint session of Congress, only people with the surname of Green are allowed to disrupt. And it went over the heads of a lot of people, but I, of course, was referring to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who disrupted Biden's speech. And I just thought it was funny that they both have the same surname, and they both, from either side of the aisle, disrupted the president, who was a member of the opposite party, during their addresses. But anyway, I thought he was over the top. Many people thought somebody had to stand up to who this president is, and Green did it. I disagree, but people have the right to their opinion. Here's a little interesting aside that occurred in terms of a lack of demeanor coming from the president as well. Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts, she in an interview said that she believes she hit a nerve by applauding United States support for Ukrainian patriots during the presidency, because in response to the applause for Ukraine, Trump referred to Warren as Pocahontas, which on the campaign trail, I get it. She inflated the amount of Native American blood in her DNA for political purposes. That was exploited by the president on the campaign trail. But we're not on the campaign trail, Mr. President. This was a speech before a joint session of Congress. And I know Mr. Green acted inappropriately, but again, it's, as I said, that the Democrats shouldn't fall to the level of the president. In my opinion, the president shouldn't have fallen to the level of the Democrats. By the way, with regard to Ukraine, Kash Patel just announced within the past hour that there has been a halt in the sharing of military intelligence with Ukraine. I'm sure most of you haven't heard about that. So since Ukraine was part of my preamble to today's discussion, I thought I would bring to you that breaking news. And then, of course, Alyssa Slotkin, the Democratic senator from Michigan, delivered her party's rebuttal. It was an economic-heavy message. She argued that the president's policies will drive up costs for consumers and painted the president as a threat to democracy. Now, by the way, with regard to that, the tossing up of the cost to consumers, and our discussion yesterday, where I was accused of being a fearmonger, by explaining for those who might not have been aware of how the manufacturing of automobiles is commingled between several nations, the United States, Mexico, and Canada, and that the automobile capital of the world, where I'm from, and I've covered these issues, and so I have a little bit of understanding. It's not just Detroit, it's Southeast Michigan and Ontario, Canada. It's one automobile manufacturing community. And I was trying to point that out yesterday and expressed how it's going to obviously affect the sticker price of cars, because parts are made on one side of the border, cars are manufactured on the other, and that's both parts in Canada and manufacturing in the United States and vice versa. And each time you cross the border, there's a tariff being slapped on by each country, and obviously it's going to cause the sticker price to go up. That's not fear-mongering. That's apparent. And today the president has, in other breaking news, announced a 1-month reprieve on tariffs for the automobile industry. So I throw that in as well, because that's apropos to the discussion of what Slotkin said yesterday. By the way, I thought her address was very measured. Whether you agree with her points or not, I was appreciative of the demeanor in which her message was delivered. Okay, so with that introduction, I'm going to open it up to you to opine on yesterday's show. And that's exactly what it was. Just like the Oval Office chaos, this was a show where if you're a Republican, you have to show undying and unrelenting support for the president. And if you're a Democrat, no matter what the president says, even if it's something as positive as catching the terrorist suspect who was responsible for killing, allegedly at least, 13 American service members in Afghanistan, you can't applaud that. Where are we going in this country? I think it's nonsense, frankly. Marshall, are you on the phone or you got your ears on? Marshall just went to the phone, so we will start with Anson.
Obviously, it was a Donnybrook, as expected. The American people are now subjected to political campaigns 24/7, 365. They're never ending. Everything is a campaign speech. There's very little serious thought, reflection, and an attempt, at least, at positive thinking. It's going on. It's like, it's the Great Divide squared compared to where it was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 years ago. And it is debilitating, it's draining, and it's a serious threat to our nation. And it's the fault of both political parties. Stop this blame game. One side's right, the other side's wrong. Both political parties are a disaster in their attempts to govern this country. And until we find a way to work together, united we stand, divided we fall, it is going to continue to debilitate, drain, and exhaust the Americans' ability to govern themselves. It's like the national debt. Everybody agrees the national debt is far too high and it's going up too fast, but nobody has a clue how to fix it. Everybody can piss and moan like I'm doing about the Great Divide, but nobody knows how to fix it. But last night was just the Great Divide squared again. I'm sick and tired of it, and it is a danger for the country. Both political parties, it is a danger to the country. Who is going to stand tall and say no more, united we stand, divided we fall? I don't see anybody with the guts to stand and do that and be able to carry the day in the United States government. And until we figure out how to do that, it's just gonna continue to get worse and worse and worse. And I'm very depressed about it. I don't know how to fix it. All I can do is complain about it. But a pox on both political parties for their behavior throughout the campaign, for the last, I don't know, maybe since 9/11. But it's just got to stop. And I don't know how to do it. And I have no confidence that we have any leader capable of doing it in this nation today. That's all I've got.
I agree with every word that came out of Anson's mouth today. Thank you for that, Anson. And we don't have to just focus on the demeanor, which, of course, I heavily spoke about in the opening salvo. We can talk about the substance of what the president had to say as well. Feel free to opine on that.
Well, I would say one good line that I liked. He said, when he talked about the border, he said he was factual that the influx of illegal immigrants is down dramatically squared. And he said all we needed to do was change the president. And that's, we didn't have to pass any bills in Congress. We didn't have to ask for more money. Yeah, we're putting some extra troops down there. But really all it took was a change in one man, the presidency, to change the way America goes about enforcing its own laws. And I thought that was an appropriate observation on the part of Trump last night.
It may have been a little self-serving, but it was not inaccurate because the proof is in the...
Self-serving, narcissistic, all the bad things about Trump, absolutely. But he was right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Thank you, Anson. Marshall.
Hey, Gary. So one of my big pieces, and Anson, if you wouldn't mind doing a sidebar, what did you think of the recommitment to U.S. naval forces in the speech?
Oh, I'm going to have to invite Mr. Anson back up so he can respond to you because I was quick on the removal to the audience. Come on back up.
Here I am. Go ahead. What's your question, Mark?
What did you make of the part of the speech yesterday where Trump recommitted to a 21st century fleet and increased naval dockyards and increased production of ships?
I didn't hear anything in the speech. I listened to the whole speech. I didn't pick up on anything. But if he is supportive of fixing the maintenance backlog of ships in the United States Navy, then of course I applaud that. I'm very interested in how he's going to pay for it and how he's going to find the workforce to do it. But obviously, if we're going to have any success against China, if we don't do something about the number of ships and the quality of the maintenance on those ships in the Pacific Ocean, China's going to walk in unopposed to Taiwan in the future.
Thank you, Anthony. I really appreciate that. I appreciated the factual piece about the border. It went on a little longer than I liked, but I know he's a long speech giver, so I kind of assumed it would be long. Some of his pokes at the Democratic Party were funny, and some of them were not. I've got to record it. If I was with my recording right now, I can tell you exactly which pieces. But there was some prodding at the Democrats who wouldn't stand, which has been a tradition for all of my... Well, actually, I think they probably all stood during the Clinton administration, but I don't know about the rest. And so some of that poking was, to me, genuinely funny. But there was a large piece of it, which is, you're just being petty. I get that you can do this, but I wish you would not do this. Now, having said that, Trump's Trump. He's never going to be as diplomatic as I would like him to be. It's just not who he is. I don't know, my mother and brother's impression of it was that it was very good. It led us into a discussion about Hegseth putting troops along the U.S.-Mexico border and threatening incursions, which, depending on where these happen, would take place in the Rio Grande Valley, and it could end up making life more dangerous, right? The way, say, for example, the revolution in 1910 happened in Mexico, the reason Blackjack Pershing's army was assembled was because Pancho Villa and Zapata had continually raided small farms and cities along the border. And so if we send in Reaper drones and troops, which I don't think you send in troops, but I think we'll probably send in Reaper drones, it just doesn't sit well with me. It also seems, to be frank, the perfect way to move Mexico into China's corner. So that kind of influence I really kind of dislike, because it would make my area a lot more dangerous. But all in all, I think it was a medium-high speech. He did well in some places and he did bad in others. So there's no, there are both pieces to dislike if I'm being objective and to like if I'm being objective.
Thank you, Marshall. Answer to Marshall's point about the president's remarks about the Navy. He announced the establishment of an Office of Shipbuilding. Now, of course, what that means, we don't know, nor should we expect to, based on an announcement during an address to a joint session of Congress. But I, like you, Anson, am anxiously awaiting the details of all this. And I'm imagining that there are those who cover the Pentagon generally and the Navy specifically who specialize in that, who will be the first to tell us what that specifically means. So you and I will both keep an eye out for that.
We already have an Office of Shipbuilding. I mean, we don't need another organization. We've got, it's called the Naval Sea Systems Command, at least that's what it used to be called. And they're responsible for the design, construction, and maintenance of the physical assets of the United States Navy. And they're manned by engineering duty officers by and large. We've got the organization in place to do it. It's just that the organization is operating ineptly, and it's been that way for a long time. I could tell you sea stories about it, but they'd be 35 years old, and I won't bore you with that. But you know, is there room? You know, sick dodge on them, sick dodge on the shipbuilding industry. I mean, go in and clean house and get people to do their jobs right. It doesn't take the national debt and money to do it. It just boils down to getting people to do the jobs that they have and do them right, rather than get caught up in all the bullshit that goes on in large bureaucracies.
So the proof will be in the pudding, of course, to see whether that announcement is form and no substance, or whether there's substance to it. So we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you.
We won't know. We won't know for a few years.
Probably.
As I said, you know, okay. When we're going to create a new office, I get suspicious because we have lots of offices. It's just the people in them don't do their jobs right.
Yeah. Well, he may not know the specifics of what the infrastructure is. Often in government, they'll change, they'll abolish one office, they'll create another office that does the same thing as the previous office, and they'll change the name. And that's why I raised the question of form over substance. I'm not saying that that's going to be the case here, but I'm just saying we have to keep an eye on that. Thank you, Anson.
I agree. You can put me back in the audience.
Yeah, no worries. Monica.
Can you come back to?
I definitely will. Les.
I'm just thinking about the cars and the tariffs and everything. And if the cost of cars goes up, then and we have a failure of car companies, certainly I won't be buying it. I think cars are too expensive right now, and if they get much more expensive, it'll even be worse, and people won't buy them. And what are we supposed to do if we ever need to make tanks or boats? Those, we need to have some manufacturing capabilities, and I think car companies are a good part of it. So I think it's also a military thing too. We need something here, and internationally, if China is able to sell cars for, what did someone say, $12,000 or something like that, and the cars are actually pretty good, are actually excellent. What does that mean for our industries here? And raising the prices of these cars, because of, and removing markets because of tariffs that are going to go both ways. People won't just say, I guess we're going to do without a car. They'll just get the car someplace else. That means China, perhaps.
What's interesting, what you said about the automobile industry potentially pivoting and retooling for military purposes should that become necessary. This, of course, is what happened in World War II, where the car companies did start putting out tanks and aircraft for the military. And that's where the term arsenal of democracy came in basically Macomb County, Michigan, and Ypsilanti, Michigan, at the Willow Run plant. And it's a moment of pride for those of us who grew up in Southeast Michigan, because it was the backbone of our military might. And by the way, that's where Rosie the Riveter came in. This is when, the men were out fighting and a lot of women were working in the plants. And it changed. I think it actually moved the perception of women in society from just being the homemaker to being somebody who could be a contributing factor outside of the home in society. I think that's when that started to pivot, because we could see, and Rosie the Riveters, they deserve the adulation that follows their contribution to the war effort. That's really a good point, Wes, that I had not considered.
One thing very quickly, just to build on your Rosie the Riveter, the first public picture I've ever seen of Marilyn Monroe was in color, and she worked at a factory that made early drones. And so you can find that picture. If someone wants me to post a link to it, I could do it.
Yeah, go ahead and link it to the chat. And folks, that chat is not on Clubhouse. It's on Facebook Messenger. The link is above. And feel free to join. I actually noticed that several people have today, and I appreciate that. We'll go to Brent, and then we'll try for Monica again. Brent?
Is it BTR order or no?
It's Gary's order. It's how Gary sees the lineup. Thank you. Brent, you're up.
Hey, how are you? So I would say a few things. One is, I think a way to analyze this is time spent on a subject. And I found a few things interesting. One is cost of living, and the increase in cost of living is the primary issue for the American people. He spent very, very little time on that. He mentioned that he spent very, very little bit of time. Far dwarfed by tariffs, which are going to, I would argue, increase prices. On foreign policy, kind of listening to him, I think the seizure of Greenland is the primary foreign policy objective of the United States. He didn't spend a lot of time in Ukraine, but one thing I noted that was missing was any discussion of Gaza. And I think that's because, it's pretty clear that the ceasefire, which I think he would have loved to take credit for, is getting ready to fall through. And that's going to be a foreign policy problem for the administration. The other thing I don't want to skate by is kind of two things. One is, we haven't remarked on kind of just the, lies that he told. The Social Security thing where he went through the list and kind of, said 300-year-olds are getting Social Security. That's been debunked 2 weeks ago. It has to do with COBOL coding and how they do databases there. So, he repeated a lie that, and he spent a significant amount of time, this is one among many, that is knowingly false, and he just kind of rammed it down. Three things, really. The second thing that caught my eye, just wanted to mention, was kind of the decorum question. I was here, I think it's false equivalency. I don't think George W. Bush, I don't think Bill Clinton, I don't think Barack Obama, and Joe Biden didn't do it. He didn't come into the State of the Union and brag about his magnificent political victory. That's not something any of those presidents have, did during their speech or have done. And I just think the pox on your both houses undermines a kind of false equivalency in this that I just think is not intellectually true. Final point is calling out Elon. I think Elon is very unpopular, and I found the kind of center place for Elon at the State of the Union another kind of interesting thing to note.
So, a lot of times people, if you keep interrupting, you'll be removed from the stage. We don't interrupt here. Like many of the other rooms, I know you're new, Cindy Lane, to the Critical Thinking Forum, but that's not how we roll here. We speak one at a time. Brent, with regard to the question of false equivalency, and that's a terminology that's tossed out all the time. Equivalency suggests equal. I think that it's fine to, and I think it's proper, to note the demeanor question, whether it's coming from the podium, whether it's coming from the Republican side of the aisle, or whether it's coming from the Democratic side of the aisle. It's up to you to determine, what value you're going to give to that with regard to whichever party you feel acted more inappropriately than the other. But to suggest that only one group acted inappropriately yesterday is not true. So to make the observation is not an equivalency. It's just making an observation. And to your point that they were reacting to him coming in and making it a political speech about how great I am as president, I will point out that they came in with their signs calling him a liar and other things before he gave the speech. So they came in with it. So it's not as if, they were reacting to what he said. They were going to react that way no matter what. And I give you an opportunity to respond to my response.
So equivalency doesn't mean that one side does nothing. It is It is the ability to make objective judgments about the degree and scale, right? So, you know, I didn't love what Al Green did, and I think that was unfortunate. But to say that this debasement of U.S. politics and U.S. decorum is the same, and both of these parties are exactly the same, I just think that is objectively false, and I think that is something that is applied over and over.
And I just said that's not what I said when I pointed out that there were drops in decorum from both sides. I never said that it was equal, and I'm sure the Democrats here will believe that he got it coming because of his demeanor, and I'm sure the Republicans here will say that the Democrats were way out of line, and they probably don't see any equivalency either. So what? The observation, I challenge you to tell me that it's wrong, that there were people on both sides of the aisle, and the president as well, who acted in an inappropriate manner for the chamber and for the event that was occurring.
They absolutely acted inappropriately in the chamber. You couldn't even get him to stand for a 5-year-old cancer victim.
So the fact that you made that comparison without making any judgment on the comparison, that implies equality. That's the point I'm making, Marshall. I don't know what point you're making, but that implies Yeah, and I kind of find it also kind of curious why I also find it, Marshall, can I respond? Can I respond, or are you going to have a tizzy? I also find it remarkable that the multiple times that Marjorie Taylor Greene broke out, the multiple times that Joe Wilson interrupted a speech, that no Democrat was ready to kind of seize a member and escort him out. You know, I believe in freedom of speech, and part of freedom of speech is being able to do things that I find uncouth.
I'm sorry, that's how the House chamber has escorted out by the sergeant at arms. It didn't have anything to do with the First Amendment.
So that's how the House chamber is.
Listen, I'm gonna stop this discussion because it's derailing the topic at hand. But I will say this: if there's a demonstration and there are counter protesters, and there's a fight between the demonstrators and the counter protesters, and as a reporter covering it, I say both the original demonstrators and the counter protesters tossed punches at one another. That does not imply that one is more culpable than the other, and it does not imply that they are equivalent. It just is stating a fact. They both threw punches at each other. Now, if you take a deeper dive into it, and your observation of standing next to me as also a correspondent, and my observation as to who deserves the greater blame may be different, but that's not implying any equivalency. Brett, I don't think you have the right to tell me or Marshall what we are implying, especially when we both said explicitly that is not what we are attempting to communicate. Don't take our words, and it's fine if you interpreted it that way and you challenged us, but we both told you that's not what we were saying. We were not implying that. So I'll tell you this, and I'll speak on Marshall's behalf. If we gave the impression that we're talking about equivalency here, that was not our intent, okay? But don't tell us what our intent was. That's really inappropriate, Brent, and you're much better debater than to fall into that
respond to that briefly? Just since
No. I said we're not going to discuss it any longer. And if you want to talk about something else as you make your way back up the queue, I will let you. But no.
So I have a silly question for you, Gary, that I hope you'll tolerate. I've been asking Clubhousers this for a couple weeks now. On your trust level of Elon Musk on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1, you like to metaphorically set him on fire, or 10, you'd like to be his next baby mama, where's your level of trust with Elon Musk?
Well, I can tell you one thing, I don't want to be his baby mama.
Right.
Because, not just for biological reasons, but I just can't compete with all those hot women.
Right.
That he impregnates. I think I reflect the views of many Americans who feel that he is extremely disquieting, and he, as a non-governmental employee, although I know they've given him some title as senior advisor to the president, he's wielding a lot of weight over things that, even if he's correct about, deserve discussion before they are enacted. I am personally, I find it difficult to understand how this administration goes in with his chainsaw and they make these knee-jerk or instant decisions based on whatever these individuals who work for him, not working for you and me, they're not working for the government. They work for Elon Musk, and they go in and they make these cuts, and he decrees that so it shall be, and so it is, until it goes to court and somebody stops it. And then after they make the cuts, they say, oh my God, we fucked up. This one we shouldn't have gotten rid of, that one we shouldn't have gotten rid of. And then they have to unfire, which is a new word, I guess, unfire people who they just fired. I don't have a problem with their attempted end result. I have a big problem with the way they are doing it. And I really find it disgusting that the richest man in the world, I think he is making decisions that affect the ability of civil servants to buy their groceries. Holy cow. Who's he from his position so aloft in the financial pecking order to go to some weather forecaster, some meteorologist, and say, your job is expendable, we don't need you? Or somebody at the FAA, or somebody at the FDA. What do you know about what these people are doing? I find it very disappointing, but I don't blame Elon Musk. He's been given the license to do this by the president, and I just think it's totally inappropriate, the manner in which they are going about it. Now, I will add to that, Monica, that when I have had these discussions with people who are so upset about the waste and the fraud and all this stuff in government, that if you say what I just said, I've been getting pushback from people who say, you don't care about the waste in government, and if we allow this to continue, we would be bankrupt, and you're bankrupting the future of the country for your grandchildren. No, I didn't say that. What I said was, the goal is a good goal. The manner in which they are attempting to achieve that goal is horrible. People's lives are upended. That's not the American way. If you have a reason to eliminate positions and you can articulate that and show that these positions ought to be eliminated, and a process of review takes place, and then the positions are eliminated. And I believe there is a process for this. It may not be a very good one, and maybe it needs to be streamlined. That's great. But to just walk in the heavy-handed way that they're doing it, I'm hearing from people who are strong supporters of the president, who voted for the president, who are really upset because they or members of their family are being affected by this. It's the largest single employer in the country, the federal government. That's a lot of people who are suddenly losing their jobs. That's my answer to your question, Monica. I hope I answered it forthrightly.
I'm hearing a two. I'm hearing a two, Gary. Not a one, but a definite two in your summary. The stage is full. I don't want to take up too much more time, but I wanted to tell you the highlights of the speech that I particularly enjoyed. I think, though, naming the wildlife preserve or area for the deceased girl that was attacked